So, and this is where I want to think a little bit more about narrative possibilities in relation to politics and ethics. So I think one of the tensions that we can see in media that tells stories about pandemics and other social issues is this kind of, is it real or not, etc. So this little quote from Rika points to this kind of, is narrative just a plaything? It's a fiction, it's a kind of cultural artifact that circulated endlessly in media. And Rika's saying, can we look more, are there other possibilities for telling stories in different ways? And is there a kind of relationship between those stories and how media works? And I suppose the concept here is about the reflexive use of narrative is vital for the human condition. So this relationship between fact and fiction is so relevant for media, as we've just discovered. But Rika is asking us to understand how narrative is ethical. It's about, the kind of life we're to live. And how narratives make intersubjective life and move us in particular ways. So to kind of round off this discussion about what media can do and how stories can be political and ethical, I've got an example for you, but I need to do a content warning. So some of you might find this distressing because it's very emotional. And it's a story from Grace Tame, who was Australian of the Year in 2021. Every year we have one person who represents Australia and does a lot of media work around their particular issue. So Grace is a sexual abuse survivor, and she tells her abuse story really powerfully in her acceptance speech. And I think it's an important example of how media and narrative come together in specific ways. It's another way in which media can be a powerful vehicle for narrative, changes the impact of narrative. So if you're not wanting to watch this is absolutely fine. This is your time to go and make a cup of tea. But if you're willing to stay with me and watch this, I think this will spark lots of conversation as well. So again, thinking here about the narrative elements in this story, how does Grace's survivor story and this media context of her award and its televisualization and the audience there present with her and beyond, how that's all part of this kind of narrative performance. And then I want us to have a bit of a chat about the ethical claims that Grace makes through the survivor narrative in this example. So I just need to stop sharing that and start.
I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land. There are still voices yet to be heard. Prime Minister, fellow nominees, Mum, Dad, Oscar, the rest of my family and friends, Max. Let her speak, creator, Nina Fennell, the campaign partners and the 16 other brave campaign survivors. Thank you. All survivors of child sexual abuse, this is for us. I lost my virginity to a pedophile. I was 15. Anorexic. He was 58. He was my teacher. For months, he groomed me and then abused me almost every day. Before school, after school, in my uniform, on the floor. I didn't know who I was. Publicly, he described his crimes as awesome and enviable. Publicly, I was silenced by law. Not anymore. Australia, we've come a long way, but there's still more work to do in a lot of areas. Child sexual abuse and cultures that enable it still exist. Grooming and its lasting impacts are not widely understood. Predators manipulate all of us, family, friends, colleagues, strangers, in every class, culture, and community. They thrive when we fight amongst ourselves and weaponize all of our vulnerabilities. Trauma does not discriminate, nor does it end when the abuse itself does. First Nations people, people with disabilities, the LGBTQI community, and other marginalised groups face even greater barriers to justice. Every voice matters. Just as the impacts of evil are borne by all of us, so too are solutions born of all of us. I was abused by a male teacher, but one of the first people I told was also a male teacher, and he believed me. This year and beyond, my focus is on empowering survivors and education as a primary means of prevention. It starts with conversation. We're all welcome at this table. Communication breeds understanding, and understanding is the foundation of progress. Lived experience informs structural and social change. When we share, we heal. Yes, discussion of child sexual abuse is uncomfortable, but nothing is more uncomfortable than the abuse itself. So let us redirect this discomfort to where it belongs, at the feet of perpetrators of these crimes. Together, we can redefine what it means to be a survivor. Together, we can end child sexual abuse. Survivors, be proud. Our voices are changing history. 11 years ago, I was in hospital, anorexic, with atrophied muscles. I struggled to walk. Last year, I won a marathon. We do transform as individuals, and we do transform as a community. When I first reported, I was shamed and ridiculed by some. But now my truth is helping to reconnect us. I know who I am. I'm a survivor. A proud Tasmanian. I remember him towering over me, blocking the door. I remember him saying, "Don't tell anybody." I remember him saying, "Don't make a sound." Well, hear me now. Using my voice amongst a growing chorus of voices that will not be silenced. Let's make some noise, Australia.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Australian of the Year for 20...
Okay. Good. So, well, we can go into small groups again if you would like to do that. Have that chance to talk that through with your colleagues, or we can stay in a large group. It's up to you. How about I'll put you into the small groups, so at least you can talk to your colleagues, and I'll bring you back in 8 minutes or so, and I'll find out what you've made of this kind of media narrative. I'll see you in 8 minutes.